Hello, it's Ryan from 2minutetennis.net, and in this video, I'm going to compare the forehands of Novak Djokovic and Jannik Sinner. Now, this video is courtesy of 12KGP Tennis on YouTube, so make sure you subscribe to their awesome channel. I've put their link in the description below. All right, first thing is their grip. They are both using a semi-western grip. Let me show you what that looks like. All you have to do is put the base knuckle of your index finger and your heel pad on panel number 4 as a right-hander. That's right there. So you take the base knuckle and the heel pad and put it on panel number 4. Remember, this is panel 1, panel 2, panel 3, and so on. If you're a lefty, then you put the same 2 spots. Your panel number 1 is the same. And if you're a lefty, this is panel 2, panel 3, and this is your panel 4. So if you're left-handed, obviously this is my right hand here. I'm just going to leave that there. But if you are left-handed, you take the same 2 spots, but you put them on this bevel. This is a great bevel to use for both power and spin. Now, I've synchronized these forehands, and they're actually hitting on the same court at Indian Wells on the practice court. But I've synchronized these forehands so they're hitting the ball at the exact same time. So the first thing is the turn. So we'll see that Djokovic's turn is higher, and I'll say right off the bat that I'm a fan of Djokovic's forehand more than I am Sinner's forehand. So let's look at them individually here. So you'll look at Djokovic's turn. He has his hitting hand the same height as his shoulder. Well, when Sinner turns, he turns a little lower. So Sinner is actually going to be using a slightly different power source, or the percentage of where he gets his power is going to be coming, a higher percentage is going to be coming from a different source, and I'll show you that in a second. But you can see that Djokovic is turning higher. I'm a fan of when the hand is shoulder level. And the reason is because you get to use more gravity-assisted racket speed. When you watch Sinner go back, he uses very much of that lag that you see with Federer. Now, when he turns and he turns lower, he has the tip of his racket pointing off to the right. Now, this is what you see with, Shapo, and you see this with Kyrgios, you see this with Jack Sock. With Federer. I did a forehand with Alcaraz and Federer, so I just said Federer, but I did a comparison of them too. But when Djokovic drops, you can see the tip of his racket is just slightly on the outside of his hand, where the tip of the racket's pointing slightly to the outside. But as it drops, it points more at the camera. I'm a fan of this for recreational players. This type of swing can be hard to manage, especially if you're just having an off day. This is a simpler type swing, and I don't think you can really argue with 20 Grand Slams. He changed his forehand, kind of in the past 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, and man, what a difference Djokovic has made compared to early on in the aughts, 07, 08, 09, even when he won the Australian. And he beat Tsonga. His forehand was completely different and so much bigger. And now he's got this beautiful compact motion that is so easy to duplicate over and over and over again. So when you look at Sinner and he drops the rack, he's got the strings facing straight at the back fence. Different than what Federer does. Federer's got his strings pointing down, much to do with the grip. But that means he has more of a correction in order to get the butt cap pointing at the ball than you see compared to Djokovic. Djokovic has got the same thing. He's got the butt cap, idea pointing at the ball, but it's just because there's less to calculate here and there's less to undo. I just think it makes it easier for him. Return of serve, just if he gets a bad bounce or the ball kind of kicks up on him a little bit, it's so much easier for him to handle that situation. Both of them have a beautiful, what's called inside out swing. You can see they both close their racket face by tilting the strings down. That allows them to hit beautiful topspin with the strings facing forward at contact. But what I mean by inside out is the racket going away from them. So look how the racket tracks away from the body. You want to make sure that you do that. A lot of recreational players, they put the ball way too close to them because they stand too close and they swing across. These guys are swinging out away from them. It's the key to hitting pure topspin as you're striking the ball. Now, here's a really cool thing to check out. I am a big fan of when players have their non-hitting hand essentially waving to the opponent at contact. When you wave to the opponent at contact, with your non-hitting hand around, let's say, chin level. So you can see his hand is around chin level. When you do that, it really makes sure as a recreational player that your hips can turn. A lot of recreational players drop this non-hitting arm and they end up hugging themselves. In a second, I'll show you what this looks like. So I'm going to go in front of the camera and show you what this looks like. You do not want to drop this non-hitting hand. In fact, if I draw a line, I'm going to draw a blue line, kind of like a water line. It's almost like Djokovic is playing tennis kind of in the shallow end of a pool, right? So his racket is going to get wet. His racket is going to go down into the water. But watch his left hand. Watch his left hand stay dry. As his left hand moves, his left hand stays dry. You want to keep your left hand up as you're unwinding. Now you'll notice that Sinner drops his lower kind of into the water, but he does raise it, which is good. Watch his non-hitting hand raise and rise up as he's hitting. Again, that's really important. You might think it's just, that's just anecdotal. No, it's really important for hip turn. If your non-hitting hand drops, it can become a counterweight. And for most recreational players, it does become a counterweight and then doesn't allow for the hip turn to happen. So they both spin up the back of the ball. I think definitely on this forehand, you'll see more topspin coming from Sinner just because he dropped his racket down a little more below the ball. But look at this finish. Big fan of catching the racket in the left hand, or as a right hander in the left hand when you finish. You'll see that Jannik, he actually tucks that arm in against his body, and he has kind of what I call a flailing finish, where there's no real end to his finish. Now, what people say is, yeah, but Ryan, if you catch the racket, it stops your swing, and it means that you don't you can't hit as hard, or it slows down your racket. Well, it's long after contact anyway, and it doesn't make you hit any slower. It simply doesn't, and it helps actually to make sure that your left hand is up as you're hitting, and to make sure that it actually that you're swinging up and that you're not swinging across. Let me show you one thing. I'm going to match up their hits, just to show how hard Djokovic is hitting this ball. Because you might think like, oh, Djokovic isn't hitting the ball that hard. He is smoking this ball. And if I'm going to put this video down below, I'm going to put both videos below, but I want you to watch this video against Cilic, who he's hitting with. He is nailing the ball. It's unbelievable how hard they're hitting and how consistent Djokovic is. But I'm going to match up their hits here, and you can see I'm matching them up. I want you to notice that Djokovic, he actually hits this ball harder than Jannik. And this is actually Diego Schwartzman. But again, these videos are matched up. So watch, these videos are matched up, and watch how Cilic actually hits this ball before Diego does. So Djokovic and Cilic are actually hitting this ball faster back and forth than Diego and Sinner. And you can actually see, by the way, look at, this is actually a great view of it. Look at Cilic's left hand going up. Look, see how his left hand's going up? Look at Diego's left hand. I don't know if you can see this because they're pretty small in the background there. But look how both of them have their left hand rising. This is so critical to your level of play. Make sure that your left hand, if you're right-handed, is rising as you're striking the ball. But I would actually, if I were you, I would copy the Djokovic turn. I would turn higher than Sinner. I would use gravity-assisted racket speed rather than having to come up with your racket speed with a huge lag that can be hard to time and hard to control. I would have that left hand a little higher and a little more extended out rather than pinning this left arm in against your body. And I would catch the racket as a way to control the racket. You can see that Sinner's just got this big loop of a follow-through to go down. I'm a fan of when pros and amateurs actually catch the racket in their left hand before they actually go back and prepare for the next shot. All right, let me show you the differences in front of the camera.